You're welcome to the Economy and Politics Conversation. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. This edition will discuss insights into the new age of corporate leadership. This is coming from the recent article published by Proshare, the 2024 CEO Remuneration Report. And this edition of the program will dissect key issues that it has raised. I'm in the studio for this conversation, Mr. Tosin Ige, Head of Research, Proshare, and Mr. Terver Audu, Macro-economist with Proshare. Nice to have you once again on this program. Thank you. Let's first begin with you, Tosin. Can you give us insights into the theme of this report and why it came at this time for the 2024 CEO Remuneration Report?
As you mentioned, the theme is basically the insight into the new age of corporate leadership. And don't forget that the data basically cover 2023, and of course we also review issues that happened in 2024 because the CEO remuneration for 2024. But one of those key issues that informed that team was that we found out that from the COVID-19 era, that a number of things has changed. And then because from the COVID itself, there has been that disruptions that has ushered in a new era in terms of businesses and even for the economy. So particularly when you now look at it from the 2021, you saw what happened with the Russia invasion of Ukraine, and then going to 2022, we saw inflation peaking, and then 2023 specifically, we had that heightened issues around geopolitics and economic fragmentations. And so when you now put all of them together, set it into the current year, we now saw that technology has also taken center stage, such that there are disruptions here and there. So you can wake up tomorrow and there is a new thing in town that is said to disrupt whatever you plan. So it has become an age of uncertainty and disruptions for CEO. And so we are now stepping back and say, okay, how does that determine affect CEO compensation in 2023, and how is it likely to set the course going forward? And so when you look at it globally, we saw that playing out with Sam Altman of OpenAI. You saw what became of him later on when he wanted to transition the company to for profit. Yes. And we see the board saying no, but because the CEO, as it were, he has that speed and profitability, which is basically the hallmark of the new age, and we saw him coming back because they could not do without him. So again, that has set the tone for what CEOs are like in the current age, because it's really a new age, akin to the age where we were talking about industrial revolution, when we talk about the information age. We're now moving to the age of uncertainty, where you just have to take hold of the speed. Yeah. When there is a disruption in town, the speed with which you must adjust and profit from it is second to none, because everything is changing and you need to, and we saw it in some of our Nigerian CEO, which we'll get there when we discuss.
Definitely, we'll discuss that. And very, very interesting point you make around the disruptions and how technology has really taken a leap further in this time. From the report, Terver, there were global trends. I'd just like to give us insight into those global trends and how it sits with the theme of this report.
Notably, the global corporate landscape was prone, one which was exposed to a lot of shocks, vulnerabilities, and this actually were the influencers of the trend shift, which some of which he has noted. The issue of technological disruption is going to be there, was there, has been there, is going to be there. You see the AI buzz, it presents so much, ability for CEOs to leverage on this artificial intelligence, machine learning technologies, to kind of, create some efficiencies or the opportunities from these technologies to see how they can drive their corporates to be maintain that profitable position despite the challenging conditions that they faced in 2023. So if we decide to pick it up from this aspect of the technological trend, the economic aspects were there. 2023 was challenging because you look at the fact that inflationary pressures were there globally, the supply chain disruptions due to geopolitical tensions there affecting how businesses are conducted. We see that a notable trend was the fact that what we saw during the COVID-19 year, where people had to be grounded at particular locations to work remotely, these trends continued. And in recent times, we see that, people are actually having preference to, remote working. And we see increased calls for CEOs that can manage both on-site and off-site, exactly. So that itself, it's a skill that CEOs must be able to have, because as times passed, this is going to actually get deep rooted into the work-life balance of people. You look at the fact that companies want to ensure that, they maintain this well-being of their staff, because as situations become very challenging, take for instance Nigeria, the working conditions are becoming very challenging, the economic conditions are so difficult. So the CEOs have to be able to still manage the human capital they have, to be able to leverage some form of, make them have that level of, productivity, the minimum level of productivity. Their well-being has to be in good conditions. So the workplace health is very, very critical. So these are some of the trends and, disruptions that CEOs had to, battle with. At the same time, the CEOs had to ensure that their corporates were profitable. So they needed to work with strategies, approach models that were flexible, that were adaptable to conditions that they were around them. So basically these were some of the observations, and reactions of the CEOs we noted. A lot of corporates are actually changing the way they operate. So this itself, it's what makes the CEO who he is, the CEO. So corporate leaders are actually changing, having that shift in mindset to be able to not be reactive, but be proactive, such that they make a model that will not just suit current conditions, but then adaptable to whatever happens in the future.
Very nice insights, Terver. So, Tosin, can you give us a snapshot of the findings from the 2024 CEO Remuneration Report?
Okay. We dive back from the previous year because we said we're going to expand the scope this year, and then we started out with aggregating both, listed, unlisted equities, all of them together. But one of the things that still brought us back to the listed equity was the fact that these are where we basically have this principal agent relationship, where it is not owner managed firms. In owner managed firm, we could not establish, when you say you want to put the CEO in contest, you may be modeling it up with someone who actually owns the business and so have the controlling interest in terms of one. So that's just brought us back to the listed equity. That's why they were the focus again for this year's CEO's remuneration. But in terms of how we approach this year's CEO remuneration, what we actually did was that again, across all the sectors, we aggregate them, and then we're able to filter out the top 10 highest earning in terms of base salary and total compensation. When I mean total compensation, we mean the addition of bonuses and the shareholdings, which of course, if the company pay dividend, that CEOs is also rewarded in that line. So that feed into the total compensation. But in terms of finding there, we found out that yes, a number of CEOs that had the base salary last year also made that list in terms of base salary this year. The same thing for total compensation. But by and large, we found out that the total compensation of this CEO increased by about over 70% from 2022, what it was in 2022. But the company profitability increased by about 3 digits. So again, it kind of showed the pattern that yes, they were rewarded because of the so
it was commensurate.
It was commensurate, exactly. And so, well, we further dived into examining what are the nature of this CEO, who is the highest paid, how does it fit into the efficiency of, and so we looked at Abat, the late Abasiekong of Abasiekong Corporation. He was the highest earning CEO in 2022, and of course we found out that his pay also increased in 2023, so he still came out as the highest paid CEO. In 2022, I think he earned in total compensation about 2.6 billion, but in 2023 he earned about over 4 billion in total compensation. Don't forget, because on the weight of their shareholding. So that kind of stood out as one of the findings, that companies are actually compensating CEOs with shareholdings also, in addition to base pay. But don't forget, we examine it further and we find out that truly what we said about the new age actually feed into this compensation, because we saw that these companies that were listed among the top 10 are actually companies that the CEO pushed the company to adapt and thrive in the new age. You know, it's quite innovative, driving innovation with the institution. So again, so that's feeding to him being the highest earning CEO. And of course, we have the top riser in terms of the Ebenezer Onyeagwu the former of he was the MD then of Zenith Bank. So it was the highest riser. I think he rose by six places, and his pay also increased by about over 300%. So of course it may be an exit package for him, because we know that he was living at us at that point. So if you put all I said together, we saw later about, we saw Ebenezer. So financial services stood out as one of the highest rewarding sector. And then we have also the conglomerates also coming in that line. Then we also have the oil and gas. Don't forget, again, the new age, because oil and gas then, when you, the early days of this report, around 2019, found out some oil and gas companies were in that list. But now we have those oil and gas companies that transition to a more sustainable company. You understand? Like Seplat, you have like Total. You know, these two actually changed from being oil and gas to energy. So we saw them adapting to the new age, and so they were listed. And also in terms of the efficiency, we also examined the efficiency. This was done using comparing the CEO pay to the company profit, in that for every ₦1 paid to each of the CEO, how much does the company earn in profit? And of course, we have some of them that earn as high as over 1,000. We have the likes of the GTCO, we have the likes of the Dangote. I think Dangote was around 900 thereabouts in profitability. So that can give us the efficiency of this company. And again, we also compare the CEO remuneration to the staff cost in order to see how equitable. Because if we say these CEOs are adapting, they are not doing it in isolation. What about the staff that are at the back end pushing this cost? So how equitable is this pay? So we also examine the CEO compensation to the staff cost, and we found of course some of them as low as 0.44%, which of course the lower the better, the lower the more equitable the company are, and we have some of them that are as high as whatever you can think of. But by and large, we actually find out that these CEOs are adapting to the new age. They've understood it, and that's why the company is rewarding them in that line.
Yes, adapting to the new age, very, very important. In 1 minute, tell me, what were these? He's talked about some of the industries and all that, but just to add to the industry specific, but most importantly, the gender specific insights from the report.
Okay, so basically, the gender aspect was an aspect that the report actually took particular interest in. The section was actually entirely devoted to kind of looking at the gender issues related to, CEOs' remuneration. So we kind of found that, gender parity concerns were still major issues that needed more focus and attention to. We kind of found that the report actually showed that the disparity between what the male counterparts, when we talk about gender in the report, we basically focus on the state of being the male or the female CEOs. So we looked at it from the aspect of, total compensation. We looked at it from the aspect of, the base pay. And we compared this to the findings of other analysts' report. For instance, the Global Gender Gap report of 2023 showed that there is at least that 50% variation in what the male CEO receives relative to. So in our own report, we actually did a case of Nigeria and found that if you look at the top 10 male CEOs relative to the top 5 female CEOs, the highest paid female CEO in Nigeria actually earns about just 50% of what the 10th highest paid CEO in Nigeria earns. So these actually were issues of concern. When you want to look at it from the aspect of maybe even the total compensation, it was the same result, but there were still positives. The positives were that, despite the fact that there was that wide disparity, the female counterparts, more of them were being captured, within this 2023 period. We're actually seeing a future whereby we're going to see more increase in the number of female CEOs being cut into these rankings, because it's worrying. When you look at the top highest paid CEOs in Nigeria, the top 20, we don't have any females there. And when you look at it by the companies listed on Nigeria's exchange, you look at the highest cap companies, the mid cap companies, the small cap companies. In the aspect of the highest cap companies, the disparity there is about, the female CEOs earning just about 15%, of what the male counterparts earn. From the mid-cap companies, on the other hand, we have the female CEO, the highest paid CEOs, they're earning just 28% of what the highest paid CEOs in the mid-cap companies earn. And in small-cap companies, there are actually no female CEOs there. So basically, what we did was to kind of call for a drive, for an increase in the gains, that we've been able to see. Some female CEOs most female CEOs came on board, but then there's need for structures, to kind of create that gender balance. It won't actually, happen at once, but at least it should. Exactly.
As we wrap up, Tosin, what are your insights? We started with the theme, but let's look at the insights into the new age of corporate leadership, now going to 2025 and beyond.
Having gone through the findings of the report, one of those things we are advocating is that, yes, there is a new age. And just as we have identified that some of these CEOs are actually in tune with this trend and they are so compensated, there is a need for other CEOs or companies, even shareholders, to actually nudge their CEOs to be innovative, adaptive to change. Don't forget to what I said. This new age is driven by speed and profit. Yeah. And now, how quick can you harness the opportunity and profit with it? This is what is driving those highest paid CEO. And if a company that is setting their CEO along this line, the three tend to benefit. When I mean the three, I mean the company itself tend to profit the more. The CEO is also compensated, given that it's keeping the company sustainable right? And of course, when the CEO is being compensated, what happens to the shareholder? You also get your own. Yes. And by the way, you don't also sacrifice it on the altar of the staff. Staff too must be compensated, because don't forget, as I said, these are actually people playing a pivot role. Though some of them are the background, but you can't definitely undermine their role. So there is need to actually tie all of this together in terms of compensation. The CEO pay, the profitability, the innovativeness, that speed and profit must be integral. And the other one is what he has said, rather, we mentioned that diversity is very important. It was quite sad when we did that area and we listed the top 20, and we found out that there is no female in that CEO, and that kind of pricked our heart that yes, we have had engagement with some of these CEOs who are female, and we know that these folks are at the top of their game. Yeah. And so it's just surprising to us that why some of them are not so compensated like their makeup counterpart. And so maybe there is a need for some adjustment to the corporate governance principle from the regulator side, or even company-specific adjustment needs to be made such that the female folks are given also the greater role as their male counterpart to compete favorably. Of course, definitely not sacrificing competence, because we're pretty confident that a large number of these females are very, very competent.
That's very important, Tosin. And when you look at what you've captured for the US, the top 20, I know that there are women there. So that's where Nigeria should be, that diversity. Thank you very much for this very interesting conversation. Mr. Tosin Ige, Head of Research, Proshare, and also Mr. Terver Audu, Macro-economist with Proshare. Very clear insights on the need for CEOs to adapt, to be innovative, to also run with speed, and diversity is very important in the whole conversation around CEO remuneration. Hope to have very interesting conversations in future days with you. Thank you once again for the time.
Thank you for having us.
To our viewers, if you want to get further insights on this conversation, visit the Proshare website displayed on the screen and follow our social media platforms to engage further on this program. Until you come your way again, enrich yourself with knowledge of socioeconomic developments around you, it is wise. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.